And we are back in the studio talking with yet another artist, Luke Schumacher, who will be participating in Harlem Sculpture Gardens. Welcome, Luke. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And so, Luke, what we are interested in learning is your artistic practice. And you really have a very diverse background. It's not just sculpture, you also fabricate other artists' works and you help
That's right.
consult with other artists. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you began to become a sculptor? And then tell us specifically about your piece, Oblique, that will be in Harlem Sculpture Gardens.
Okay, great. I think I've always been artistically inclined.
Okay.
Even as a kid, I lived in New Hampshire, sort of in the woods, and I would take sticks and rocks and build things out of
No,
nature.
that's kind of common with
Nature
kids.
installations, right? And other stuff too. Um, and I actually had the chance to go to a private school in New Hampshire, and they taught a lot of different art stuff, soapstone carving
Mm,
and jewelry making and all
okay.
kinds of stuff. So I was very lucky to
Okay.
have that experience. Um, Later on, I moved to California into the Mojave Desert. Um,
That's quite a contrast.
Quite a contrast, you would say, yes. I and I really loved the rock formations there. I thought it was
Mm,
so interesting. But I was a little bit older and not so much into the artwork anymore. I still, I took art classes in high school, but then, I got very interested in automotive and cars because California has like quite the car culture there.
mm-hmm.
So that is also where I learned how to weld and work with metal and do
Mm,
metal fabrication. So my metal fabrication background stemmed from automotive
gotcha.
industry, and I went to tech school in Wyoming for automotive.
Wow.
Yeah, and learned a lot of like hammer forming and custom metal fabrications through that school, and then after that school, I moved back home to California, and I started taking some classes at the college there. I was then had the opportunity to go to school for BMW,
Mm,
and I learned some like paint technique and stuff like that through them. After all that, I was supposed to get a job with BMW, but it just didn't work out,
mm-hmm.
and I ended up coming back to the Mojave Desert there. There's a small college there which surprisingly had some really good art teachers there and some courses that you could take. I took bronze casting
Wow.
classes, yeah, and ceramics, some photography, some still life drawing and stuff like that. And that's when I really started getting into the artwork. And they actually had a sculpture garden there, and I was allowed to make a sculpture for the sculpture garden on a 2-year loan basis at that place, which was um, at the time like very exciting.
Yes.
Yeah,
And did
and
that spur you to come back to the East Coast and then
so
start your?
so I so I was like, one of my teachers was like, you should go to UCLA and do this and like take all these like philosophy and think about all that stuff. And me being my rebellious self, I said, I'm gonna move to New York. I'm gonna find an artist to work for, and I'm gonna just submerge myself in the art scene in New York. I knew if I were to go to LA, I would I would end up coming home on the weekends to visit my family, and I wouldn't take it as seriously. So I put myself as far away from my family as possible, as to really submerge myself in this. And I came here on a, as I call, a staycation
Mm-hmm.
with a job interview. I brought a backpack, and that's it. With like 2 changes of clothes. I came in, I had the job interview, and the woman hired me And then it was off to the races. She was a furniture designer slash artist. And I worked for her for a couple of years, and then the economy did not do. That was 2007, 2008, right when the economy took its dump. And then after that, I was like kind of like got into more some construction stuff like that. The construction, construction in New York is nonstop. It's just constantly buildings coming up and buildings going down. So there was work there, and I got into architectural metal fabrication, which it was, I think, a very good thing because it forced me to be more concise with like the building, and like everything had to be like perfect and square and plumb. So it like really helped me develop more of my skills as a fabricator.
Okay. So why don't you tell us about Oblique?
So Oblique is the sculpture that I'm proposing for the Harlem
Harlem Sculpture Gardens.
Harlem Sculpture Garden, sorry. And this piece is it's an arch basically, and it sort of represents like a universal energy, and is like a timeless, unceasing power that exists all around us. Like, and it's also like this arching like growth of like like similar to like a tree that grows and then goes into the ground or something like that. And it's the size will be 9 feet tall, 10 feet wide, and 3.5 feet deep.
Wow.
It's going to be made out of bronze, and I'm very excited to put this together. I started getting the materials today, and we'll start working on it very shortly. Hopefully, if I can get this pulled off in time. I know my schedule is very tight with my business and with this, so. But yeah, we're going forward, and I'm very excited about that. And Oblique is neither parallel or perpendicular to a specified or implied line, and this piece is kind of this like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a very natural shape. It's more organic and sort of like almost a horn or something. Yeah, so.
Okay, well, we look forward to seeing that in the spring.
I do too.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.